In the heart of Cebu, where the streets buzz with tricycles and the scent of sea air drifts through the narrow alleys, lived a young girl named Althea. She was barely 16 but had a voice that carried the weight of 1,000 stories. Her home was small, built from wood and tin, where the rain made music on the roof every night. It wasn't much, but it was filled with love, laughter, and the echoes of her late father's guitar. Every evening, Althea would stand by the window, singing softly while her mother prepared dinner. Her voice, though tender, was filled with emotion, a mixture of sorrow and strength that seemed to reach beyond their small world. Her father had always told her, "One day, Anak, your voice will be your wings." But life had taken him away too soon, leaving behind his old guitar and a daughter who promised never to let go of the dream they once shared. Althea practiced every day, barefoot on the cracked floor, her reflection in the small mirror reminding her that dreams didn't belong only to the rich or lucky, they belonged to those who never stopped believing. Her mother, a laundry worker, watched silently, her eyes full of both pride and worry. The electricity would often go out, and Althea would light a candle, continuing to sing even in darkness. Her voice filled the room with light stronger than any bulb. When she saw the announcement for America's Got Talent 2025 auditions online, she didn't think it was possible. "Mama, what if I try?" she asked shyly, holding her phone with trembling hands. Her mother smiled faintly. "Try, Anak. Let the world hear Cebu's voice." Selling her old phone and borrowing money from a neighbor, they bought a one-way ticket. It was the biggest risk of their lives. Althea had never even been on a plane. The journey to Los Angeles was overwhelming. Bright lights, towering buildings, and faces she couldn't understand surrounded her. But she carried her father's guitar and her mother's faith. On the day of her audition, she wore a simple white dress, the same one she used to sing in at church back home. Backstage, she could hear other contestants laughing, rehearsing, and chatting confidently. She stood silently in the corner, clutching the old guitar, whispering a prayer. "Papa, be with me." When it was her turn, she walked onto the grand stage. The blinding lights made it hard to see the judges clearly, but she recognized Simon Cowell instantly. His reputation for being brutally honest sent a shiver down her spine. "Hello," Simon said, his tone half curious, half measured. "What's your name, and where are you from?" "I'm Althea, from Cebu City, Philippines," she replied, her accent thick but her voice steady. The audience cheered lightly, impressed by her courage. "And what are you going to sing for us today?" asked Sofia Vergara kindly. Althea took a deep breath. "A song for my father, who taught me to sing." The room grew still. The lights dimmed. A single spotlight fell on her. She strummed the first chord on her father's guitar, the sound trembling at first, then finding its strength. Her voice rose softly, fragile like glass, but with every note, it gained power. She sang not just words, but pieces of her soul. Each lyric told a story of love, loss, and hope, the kind that comes from a small home with big dreams. The crowd, noisy moments ago, was silent now. Even Simon leaned forward, his usual stern face softened. There was something raw about her performance, something unpolished, honest, and pure. Halfway through the song, her voice cracked slightly, and a tear rolled down her cheek. But instead of stopping, she lifted her head and sang harder. The emotion hit like a wave. People in the audience began to cry. As she reached the final line, "Papa, I'm still singing for you," she closed her eyes, letting the last note hang in the air. The silence that followed was thick and heavy, like the whole world had stopped to listen. Then came the explosion of applause. People rose to their feet, clapping, cheering, shouting her name. Althea covered her mouth, shaking. She couldn't believe it. Simon looked at her quietly for a moment. Then, without saying a word, he stood up. The audience gasped. He looked at her with rare emotion in his eyes, and pressed the golden buzzer. In that instant, golden confetti burst from the ceiling, falling like rain made of dreams. Althea fell to her knees, sobbing, the confetti sticking to her hair and dress. Her mother, standing in the crowd, screamed her name through tears, Althea. Anak. Simon walked onto the stage as the music played. That, he said, wasn't just a song. That was your heart speaking to millions. Your father would be very proud. Althea couldn't speak. She simply nodded, tears streaming down her face. The audience chanted her name. She looked around, trying to take it all in, the lights, the sound, the gold raining from above. It felt unreal. For the first time in her life, she wasn't just the girl from Cebu. She was the girl who made the world listen. Backstage, she ran into her mother's arms, both of them crying uncontrollably. "Mama, we did it," she whispered. Her mother cupped her face and said softly, "You did it, Anak. You showed them your soul." Around them, crew members and other contestants watched, some still emotional. Even the host, Terry Crews, wiped his eyes and said, "That's what this show is about." Althea sat on a small bench, still holding the guitar. The confetti shimmered on her lap like pieces of gold hope. For a moment, she closed her eyes and imagined her father smiling, his voice echoing in her mind, "I told you, Anak, your voice will be your wings." She smiled through her tears. Later, during interviews, she spoke softly into the camera. "I didn't sing to win," she said. "I sang to thank my father and my mother for believing in me when the world didn't. I sang for every Filipino child who dreams beyond the island. I want them to know, even if you come from nothing, your voice can take you everywhere." Clips of her performance went viral within hours. Millions of views poured in on YouTube. Fans from around the world commented, saying they felt her pain and power even without understanding every word. "The girl from Cebu made me cry," one wrote. Another said, "That's not just singing, that's storytelling through sound." Days later, she received messages from people across the Philippines. Schools played her song at assemblies. Children tried to imitate her voice. The mayor of Cebu even announced that her performance had brought pride to the entire island. But Althea stayed humble. She continued to pray, practice, and call her mother every night, thanking her for every sacrifice. When she stood again on that same stage weeks later for the semi-finals, the judges greeted her with smiles. "Our golden girl from Cebu is back," said Howie Mandel. Simon simply smiled and said, "Welcome home." And as she sang once more, this time with confidence, grace, and quiet power, the audience already knew they were witnessing something beyond competition. They were witnessing a journey of faith, love, and resilience. When the lights faded that night, Althea stood alone for a moment, looking up at the empty seats. She whispered, "Thank you, Papa." Somewhere beyond the lights, beyond the noise, it felt like he was listening. The world had heard her voice, but the song was always for him.